previous video, I argued for why Edward, based on his behaviors, personality, and traits, should have been the protagonist of the Twilight series. He makes active decisions, he has hobbies and quirks, and overall, he's simply more interesting than Bella. However, many still take fault with Edward. Even Stephanie Meyer, in writing Edward, said he gave her feelings of anxiety. Edward is essentially a ball of stress, and that's before you dive into the controversies surrounding his character. As such, this video aims to reveal not who the protagonist of Twilight actually was, but who it could have been. That's right, I'm talking about the bratty, enthusiastic, party-hungry Alice Cullen. With her tragic backstory and her existence as a vampire, she could have had every reason to be mopey. Instead, she is the cheerfulest character I know from literature. Anti-heroes like Edward continue to be all the rage. Even the protagonists in my own stories experience no shortage of angst or brooding, but what if it didn't have to be that way? What if, instead of another miserable hero, we had someone who was plucky and quick to smile? It might sound strange, we've grown used to the unhappy hero, but wouldn't someone like Alice be a breath of fresh air? Perhaps Alice Cullen should have been the protagonist of the Twilight series, and here's why. Before we continue, I'm Riley and this is Otherworldly Fiction. On this channel, I obsess over Twilight and Harry Potter, discuss books, and share the occasional writing advice. If any of this sounds like your cup of mountain lion, hit that subscribe button. Posts are on Fridays. Obviously, centering the narrative on Alice would mean focusing on a new story, but given mixed reactions to Bella and Edward, that doesn't have to be a bad thing. On the merit of her character alone, Alice would make for a more engaging protagonist than both Bella and Edward. Reason number one is that she's cheerful. I've said this already, and I'll say it again. Alice is cheerful. Optimism and cheer are rare traits in a protagonist, and as a writer, I understand. It's fun to write characters who are bitter, cynical, and moody, but that doesn't mean those are the only characters readers want to see. Having a cheerful protagonist doesn't mean having a protagonist who's happy every second, but even optimists face obstacles and have their bad days. What it does mean is that your protagonist, even in the wake of danger or uncertainty, can maintain a bright outlook. She can become stressed, worried, or irritated, but at the end of the day, she still believes life is worth living. This is who Alice Cullen is. She's fun-loving. Even through eternal damnation, she's eager to throw parties, dance, and wear the best clothes. Her life hasn't been easy, but she's never allowed either her dark past or her chaotic present to dampen her eagerness for everything. Most vampires in Twilight have some level of angst. Even Carlisle, arguably the most well-adjusted of his species, conceals a certain level of pain. But this isn't the case for Alice. Alice makes being a vampire look kind of fun, and as a protagonist, vampire or not, she'd provide a needed change of pace. I'm all for moody anti-heroes and jaded cynics, but readers still crave variety, and having a protagonist in this day and age who's actually happy and enthused about life would be unique. We haven't had a hero as bright-faced as Alice since Anne with an E, and as Anne demonstrated, someone who sees the beauty in life, or who knows how to enjoy it, doesn't necessarily make for a boring hero. If anything, we might be due for another Anne type, even if she does suck blood. Reason number two is the tragic backstory. Tragic backstories, like crushing angst, aren't required to craft interesting characters. On the other hand, they don't hurt either, provided they're done well. In the case of Alice, her dark past is intriguing. Comparatively, Bella's beginnings are kind of dull. The story of a girl suffering through the divorce of her parents could be interesting, but Meyer rarely digs into those aspects of Bella's life which could make her compelling. After the divorce of her parents, Bella moves, goes to school, and goes to school again. Her life is normal and boring, but Alice's human life was anything but. A series which followed Alice needn't have waited until her immortality for her to become interesting. It could be argued that Bella doesn't become an engaging protagonist until she's transformed into a vampire, but Alice faced challenges from girlhood. In another video, I covered Alice's backstory. If you haven't seen it, I'll give a brief overview. Alice was born into a family of 4. She had her mother and father and a younger sister. However, her powers manifested even when she was human, and she began to unnerve those around her with predictions. At first, her predictions were innocent. She'd set the table for an unplanned guest, or carry an umbrella around because she knew rain was coming. But she didn't grow out of her abilities the way people hoped. Her predictions became more direct. When she predicted the death of her cousin, she was then blamed for his death. People called her witch child and changeling, and though Alice tried to conceal her powers, she couldn't help herself. If someone was in danger, she was compelled to speak, earning herself ire from friends and family alike. Alice lived in an age of poor education and prejudice. People didn't understand mental illness, and those who were different were ostracized at best and committed at worst. Alice saw her father hiring a man to kill her mother. Try as Alice did to warn her mother, Mrs. Brandon couldn't hide in her home forever. Having let her guard down, Mrs. Brandon was murdered, and before her body could grow cold, her husband had remarried. Alice's stepmother despised Alice, and when Alice, relying on the knowledge given to her by her abilities, called them out for the murder of her mother, she was shut in an asylum. Her head was shaved, owing to an outbreak of tuberculosis, and she was subjected to all the horrors an asylum can offer, including dark and cramped spaces and shock therapy. During her stint in the asylum, Alice also became the target of none other than James, who would later hunt Bella. Alice would have died if not for the intervention of one of the asylum's workers, a vampire who tended the grounds by night and who had befriended Alice. When Alice saw that James would come after her, her friend, who'd taken a shine to her, took her away. He'd always protected her, and his next step was to bite her. James had no interest in immortal prey. However, the transformation needed 3 days, and James was coming. The only way the vampire could save Alice after biting her was to sacrifice himself. He fought long enough to buy Alice time, but still died in the battle. Alice was safe, but the pain of her transformation, as the shock therapy had done, again erased her memories. She came to a vampire, with no knowledge of her human life or the friend who died to save her. Alice has an incredible story, and her human life and the story of how she was changed would have made an exciting first volume in any series. Reason number 3 on this list is that Alice has agency. Even before becoming a vampire, Alice made choices. She chose to confront her powers and to attempt to save others through predictions. However, as a vampire, her independence only increased. She sought Jasper out and then led him to the Cullens. Though reacting to her visions, she could have ignored them. Once settled into Cullen life, Alice contributed through her passions, her abilities, and the stock market. Money was never a problem for the Cullens, because Alice's gift enabled them to make the right decisions. As many family members joke, there's no betting against Alice, and any bet of Alice's can be counted on. When it comes to the matter of making Bella immortal, Alice is also unafraid of speaking her mind. She takes Bella's part, arguing against Edward. When the other members of the family, on Edward first meeting Bella, debate killing her, Alice is simply impatient to become Bella's friend. Alice is frequently the minority voice, or in disagreement with someone, and yet she doesn't back down. She agrees with varying characters throughout the saga, sometimes Edward and sometimes Bella, showing she has her own opinions. While others might be intimidated by Edward, there's no phasing Alice. She's quite content to tell him when he's being an idiot, and threatens to change Bella herself if Edward doesn't. After all, it's Bella's choice too, and Alice is all for it. In another version of events, Alice changing Bella, even at the risk of earning her brother's ire, would have been an exciting plot twist if it was her story. A character who makes choices and challenges others is never going to be a boring protagonist. Reason number 4 is that Alice is fun. Alice isn't just an optimist. She's fun. She's the girl we'd all love to hang out with, even if we ourselves felt more like the insecure Bella. And this dynamic is shown in the books when Alice does become Bella's friend. More than with any of her human friends, Bella enjoys spending time with Alice. Bella isn't big on fashion, but she loves Alice, and who wouldn't? Alice is bubbly. She has hobbies and a great fashion sense. She loves parties. There are a few vampires in literature one can picture as wanting to have fun, except perhaps Lestat, but Alice is one of the rare few. If you're going to live forever, you might as well enjoy it. She can overdo it on the decorations, her parties bordering on overly elaborate. But that's part of the fun of Alice's character. She doesn't do anything by halves. She goes all out, damned what others might think, and she always enjoys herself in the process. Even Bella's wedding is a treat to her. Alice relishes the chance to plan any event, especially if clothes and decorations are involved. Plus, as a vampire, she's a great dancer. If one wanted to hit the town, Alice would be the person to hang out with. She's essentially the best friend we've all dreamed of, and seeing her take charge in her own story, even if something as simple as a party, would provide plenty of entertainment. Who wouldn't want to see into Alice's mind, following her as a hero while she planned one of her crazy events? One can already imagine the humorous monologues provided for what suit would annoy Edward most, and the debate over how many lights would be too many. Reason number 5 on this list is that she's flawed but likable. Alice isn't perfect, but that's also part of her charm. Bella can be seen as boring because she lacks flaws, but with Alice there are a few. Mainly, Alice is bossy. She can even come across as controlling, and yes, she did help Edward to kidnap Bella that time. She can be pushy, not relenting until she has her way, and she's notorious for guilt trips. Oh, and she's been known to steal expensive cars. Alice isn't perfect, but her flaws are well balanced with her positive traits. Bella can be seen to have too few flaws, and Edward too many, but Alice is a solid character because she veers neither into Mary Sue territory or villain territory. Instead, while her flaws make her interesting, they don't make her seem as questionable as Edward. Her positive traits include cheerfulness, caring, playfulness, a love of fun, and no shortage of independence. She's assertive, standing up for herself as needed. And she's optimistic, not because she's happy all the time, but because she doesn't allow the bad stuff to stop her from enjoying her life. Readers, even those who hated Twilight, couldn't help loving Alice. Her character feels the most fleshed out, and her combination of flaws and playful energy make her one of the most believable characters of the saga. That's what makes a great protagonist, someone who readers can root for, problems and all, and still love. Reason number 6 on this list are Alice's superpowers. One can't do a video on Alice without addressing the elephant in the room. Out of all the vampires in the saga, Alice easily has the coolest ability. She can see into the future. While this ability could be hard to tackle as a writer, given how many problems it could solve, Meyer handles it fairly well. If anything, Alice's ability can seem to cause problems. After all, while it acts as a warning system, it usually predicts the worst-case scenarios. As such, characters are left to grapple with the emotional upheaval. None of Alice's visions are certain, but knowing Bella could die, or that the Volturi could destroy them all, ramps up the tension. In Midnight Sun, by dint of Edward's abilities, we're also given a glimpse into Alice's mind, and we're made to understand that her abilities are anything but easy. At the best of times, they're exhausting. At the worst of times, a great deal of pressure is put on Alice by the family. If something goes wrong or could go wrong, everyone turns to her for answers. Even when life is peaceful, Alice is deluged with information. She can't shut her powers off, any more than Edward can. unable to shut her eyes, as it were, she struggles to stay in the present or to remain focused. In a public space, her abilities can also make her conspicuous to humans. When a vision hits, she'll stare off into space, prompting the concern of those around her. Alice's ability provides stakes, where characters would have been blissfully ignorant, but they add conflict to Alice's life too. If Alice were the protagonist, readers would be continually treated to her struggle to juggle her visions while still remaining a part of daily life. They'd see her grapple with the pressure placed on her by others, and her experience of the losses her powers led her to. In Midnight Sun, Alice predicts that Bella could be killed, showing how serious Edward's situation is. She also predicts that Bella is highly likely to become a vampire if she remains with him, which understandably increases Edward's already intense anxiety. Alice is helpful, but her ability is seldom reassuring. If anything, having someone sharing your potentially bad future with you every other day is unnerving. Alice makes others around her tense, and that can't make for an easy time. Every protagonist needs conflict, and Alice's ability provides plenty of it. Finally, her ability is well designed. While it makes for exciting chase sequences and provides conflict for those around her, it also has its limits. Every magic system, whether it be elemental or something else, needs to have its flaws. Alice's gift is one of those which could easily fall into the overpowered category, but Meyer gives Alice checks. First of all, Alice's visions aren't certain. They rely on the decisions of others, which makes them shaky. If someone changes their mind, the future changes too. Therefore, Alice can be wrong. Their plans can fall apart, such as is seen in the case of James capturing Bella. Split-second decisions can throw Alice off, because she can't react to them fast enough. Second, there are those who are immune to Alice's powers. With the introduction of the werewolves, Alice loses the ability to see the outcome of any battles the wolves participate in, making the outcome less predictable for readers. Renesmee also proves to be a blind spot for Alice. If Alice had simply been able to tell Bella she'd survive, most of Breaking Dawn's conflict would have been lost. The ability to see the future is put to good use by Meyer, and it's just one more reason to love Alice. Seeing into her mind while she faced these visions and used them in both battles and everyday life would have been a treat for readers. In conclusion, Alice has a cool ability, likely the coolest ability a vampire can have, but she manages to stand on her own as a solid character without it. As a person, she's engaging, she's fun to be around, and she's flawed but believably so. She has an eager attitude, a cheerfulness which is too rare in protagonists these days, and most importantly, she has agency. She calls the shots. She stands up for what she believes in, and she lives her own life. It's worth noting that even as enmeshed with the Cullens as she is, Alice and Jasper occasionally go off on their own too. Alice is fun-loving, interesting, and independent, and as a result, she would have made a better protagonist than Bella or even Edward. Also, readers love Alice, and that in itself is reason enough for her to have her own series. Who knows? If Meyer has grown tired of Edward and Bella, a story following Alice during one of her stints of independence from the Cullens wouldn't be a bad idea. Plus, the Volturi want Alice, giving us a ready-made conflict. A reader can dream. Would you want a series with Alice as the protagonist? Who are your favorite characters in the saga? Sound off in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and happy reading.